Hello, everybody, and welcome to the War Room. This one is for this weekend's UFC Fight Night. Song Yadong taking on Cory Sandhagen. I'm really excited about this one. Of course, we're all, still in the aftermath of UFC 279 and all the joy and drama that brought. And this one's kind of creeping under the radar a little bit. I think people should be more excited about this fight than they are. And I'm hoping that as the week goes on, the interest picks up because, these are two of the most exciting guys on the whole UFC roster. Cory, for me, is one of my preferred fighters to watch, especially when I'm researching because there's a lot of thought that goes into his game. You can tell that by the way he moves. On the other side, of course, Song Yadong is a very exciting prospect. And I know that it's weird for me calling him a prospect when he's got more fight experience, which I'll come to in a second with the tail of the tape. But there is an age difference here, and I do think it shows in their game. Cory Sandhagen is 5 years older than Song Yadong, and even though Cory's record is 14-4, Song Yadong's is 19-6-1 with one no contest. 27 fights for Song Yadong, 18 for Cory Sandhagen. But the maturity of Sandhagen shows, in my opinion. I really like Song Yadong's game, and I think that the experience that he's gathering at this young age is going to be really valuable to him. But I don't think he fights quite like a mature fighter yet, and that might be where he falls into a hole in this fight against Sandhagen. Let's have a quick further look at the tail of the tape before I get into the reasons why I'm saying that. Okay, so Cory Sandhagen with the height and reach advantage, 5'11", 70-inch reach. He's going to make the most of both of them, especially with the way that he moves as well. He's very fluid. He's very, very light-footed. Doesn't really, stand with too much weight spread on either leg. I think his movement's going to be problematic for Song Yadong as well as his height and reach. Now, when it comes to their records, 14-4 for Cory Sandhagen, 6 knockouts, 3 submissions, an armbar, a triangle, and a rear naked choke. On Song Yadong's side, you've got 19 wins, 6 losses, 8 by knockout, so 50% of his fights, 50% of his wins are by knockout. 3 submissions as well, 2 rear naked chokes and a guillotine. Interestingly as well, he's been knocked out once earlier on in his career before the UFC, but he's never been subbed. Cory Sandhagen, on the other hand, has been subbed once, but has never been knocked out. And we saw his submission defense against Alcantara. He's a very scrappy, difficult person to deal with, difficult person to hold down and control, very difficult to isolate a limb and try and armbar him, or, same thing with ankle locks and stuff. But at the same time, he's very tricky on the ground, very good at reversing the momentum of fights, at the drop of a hat, very quickly switches it on his opponent. Sometimes someone will shoot in on him and he'll immediately start to attack, start to tumble for ankles or threaten the neck. And this is one of the reasons why I enjoy watching him so much. If you're a young fighter, it's worth, in my opinion, studying Sandhagen and the way that he moves, because he plays with the space between him and his opponent very well. And of course, there are other fighters that do this. TJ Dillashaw does this very well. Of course, Dominic Cruz does this very well. For me, Sandhagen is a little bit further ahead than both of those guys. And I know he's got a loss on his record to Dillashaw, which I'd like to see that rematch, to be honest, because, well, before we move on from that. So Cory landed 128 strikes against TJ Dillashaw's 110. That was significant. Total strikes 171 to 169. He knocked TJ down in the second round as well, which is not counted on the stats. TJ tried for 19 takedowns and he scored 2. But he is credited with 822 of control. I'm not sure exactly how they came to that number. Like, for me, Cory was more effective. His striking was cleaner. His footwork was better. He was walking TJ onto things. He really kind of... For me, he showed the difference in levels of footwork in that fight. I thought he looked really good. And sometimes, when you've got fighters that have got footwork like this, like Dominic Cruz, for example, like we've just seen what happened against Chito Vera to him. Like there are risks with that kind of footwork because a lot of it requires your hands to be kind of down at your chest and dipping and sliding to one side and turning off, pivoting off with your hands down because it makes most of the momentum it makes the most of your momentum as you move in. Dominic Cruz uses that nice like slingshot movement that he does, that he puts into his hooks that generates power. Sandhagen's very good at kind of darting and firing things across the center line. On the flip side, of course, the risks are that you can run onto something, you can slip onto something. And one thing I like about Song Yadong's game, the thing that he caught Julio Arce with was that head kick to punch. Now, if I'm Song, I know that I've got good punching power. I know that the trade-off in the punching range it's favourable to me. What I don't want to do is be swinging for Cory Sandhagen and be missing, because that would be frustrating and that would become exhausting. And for a young man, it would become a little bit embarrassing, and he would get even more anxious and try and put his hands on Sandhagen, which would make it even easier for him to hit. I'm gonna have to have a sip of tea. Oh, there's loads to think about with this fight. I love it. Ideal opponent for Cory Sandhagen. Someone that's very traditional in the way that they move, and someone that doesn't switch stances too much, that doesn't change the range and distance between them too much. He likes the orthodox fighter that moves in quite an orthodox way. Marlon Moraes, Frankie Edgar, good examples. People that he can predict where they're going to be, so then he can let his techniques fly, jumping knees, spinning head kicks, and the such. When he's fighting someone that does similar footwork to him and kind of moves in and out of range, it takes him a minute to kind of get a bead on their timing. But against Song Yadong, he's going to get someone that's going to pressure him. He's going to get someone that's going to walk at him, try and cut him down, and try and land really nice power combinations. The striking, the power in the striking definitely favours Song Yadong, but like I said, that can work against him if he's throwing and missing, which Cory Sandhagen's very good at making you do. If Yadong is able to cut Sandhagen down and put him up against a fence and start to cut him off with those strikes, then the impact of those strikes will start to gather, especially over 5 rounds. Now, before I move on from that point, neither of these guys have had a lot of success over 5 rounds. Song Yadong's had one 5-round fight outside of the UFC, which he lost a decision, and Cory Sandhagen's coming off 2 5-round defeats, Dillashaw and Yan. Now, I gave you briefly my thoughts on the Dillashaw fight. It's somewhat reflected in the Peter Yan fight as well. Significant strikes, 169 to Cory to 149 for Yan. 172 total strikes, 158. There was a knockdown for Peter Yan, of course, a submission attempt. So there is slightly more on the side of Peter Yan, but what the stat shows is that work rate over 5 rounds is there for Peter Yan, for Cory Sandhagen, against the likes of Peter Yan and TJ Dillashaw. And I don't think that Song Yadong is at that level where he can give Cory Sandhagen the same kind of problems that those two did. And even against Yan and Dillashaw, there were still moments where he looked really good. I still really enjoy watching those fights to appreciate both fighters. But I watched Sandhagen against Dillashaw again today, and his footwork is just so slick. It's so loose and elusive. And 2 of 19 takedowns. It's his takedown offense. What was it? Was that not like 9%, 10% success? It was a really strong performance. And I feel like on a different night, other judges might have seen it differently. And I think in a rematch, we're going to see a better Cory Sandhagen and the same TJ Dillashaw. I mean, that's just me speculating, but I feel like Cory's got the mind where he's going to keep progressing. For Song Yadong, he's definitely going to keep progressing because he's young. He's still very much at the beginning of his career, even though he's got a lot of experience behind him. And he has physical attributes that really, accentuate his style. He's a power puncher. He likes to walk people into range with a nice tight guard and then let go. Beautiful power shots, 3, 4, 5 strike combinations. seeing him couple it with that head kick against Julio Arce, and then the way that he used his uppercut against Marlon Moraes shows that he's got options on the outside if his opponent is moving and drifting from one side to the next. He's got that head kick that he can kind of stop them moving before he fires his right hand down the pipe. He's also got that uppercut, so if Cory does come in and start trying to work knees and stuff, we know he's got that power up the center line with the uppercut. 7 first round finishes on the side of Song Yadong compared to 6 for Cory Sandhagen. The one other thing I want to talk about is the knockdown ratio, because this is something I've been looking into a bit more. I've divided it up a little bit more now for you guys for it to be a bit more accurate. And again, the statistics favor Song Yadong in power over Cory Sandhagen. Interestingly, they both had 10 fights in the UFC. 613 total strikes for Yadong, 819 total strikes for Sandhagen. So about 60-ish strikes for Yadong, about 80-ish strikes for Sandhagen per fight-ish. But of course, that stacks up in Sandhagen because he's done 5-round fights in the last couple. Okay, let me just write this down so it makes sense to you. So we've got Song Yadong, who's thrown 613. Oh, hang on a minute, Jimmy, I'm not recording this. There we go. Song Yadong, 613 total strikes, 5 knockdowns. Now, of those 613 total strikes, 57 were on the ground. So that leaves us with a total of, hang on a minute, let me clear that. So that leaves us with an actual number of 556 strikes to 5 knockdowns, which gives him a knockdown ratio of 111.2 per KD. On the other side, Sandhagen's landed, blue pen, 819 total strikes. But then we have to take 127 off that, which leaves us with 692 for 5 knockdowns. So 138.4 per knockdown. So slightly more volume for Sandhagen. Slightly more one-punch bang and you go down for Song Yadong. And the other thing you have to remember for Sandhagen as well is some of his significant strikes are spinning head kicks, back kicks, flying knees. I feel like Yadong has got to close Sandhagen down, but I don't know if he wants to get tangled up with him too much. I think he needs to find that sweet spot where he's got him squeezed up against the fence and he can work those combinations, but not get tangled up too much where Sandhagen can start chasing his neck and trying to wrap him up in something, because those long arms and his keenness to be attacking constantly might stifle Yadong, especially if he gets in close range. He might give his back or something like that, which would not surprise me at all. I think this is a really fun fight. I think Song Yadong can lean into his physical attributes. So if he can get close enough to Cory Sandhagen, I think Sandhagen leads the dance with his footwork and with his timing and with his range management. I don't think he has the same kind of hitting power, but I think with his legs and knees involved, I think that makes him equally as dangerous on the feet. I also feel like if it hits the ground, again, Song Yadong is going to be far more about his physical power, is trying to control his opponent, as opposed to Cory, who's going to be rolling and tumbling and trying to ride that chaos and see if he can tangle his opponent up with something. Snag an arm, attack a heel, grab a neck, whatever it is. Just before I leave you, let's quick have a look at the tail of the tape again, the significant strike stats and grappling stats, because this kind of does paint the same type of picture. So Cory Sandhagen, strikes landed per minute, 6.42 compared to 4.92 for Song Yadong. So both with a high striking output, but Cory leading slightly higher striking accuracy, but slightly better striking defense for Song Yadong, which is, of course, he's going to be valuable if he's got a high volume of strikes coming his way. Takedown average slightly higher for Cory Sandhagen, but a slightly less takedown accuracy, but slightly better takedown defense and a higher submission average. So again, I think Cory Sandhagen might be able to dictate where this fight goes based on his willingness to drop into positions and attack as opposed to defending takedowns, and also his scrappy scrambliness. He is the one with the less fight experience, but I think he's going to fight like the more mature fighter in this one. We'll see. Should be a good one. Enjoy the fights. I'll see you next time.